I'd just firstly like to say my job is to make sure everyone here gets the most out of their time together today. That's my responsibility. So I'm going to do probably what you'll think is a fair bit of sort of urging and cajoling and helping people be in the right place at the right time and think in the right way. So I'm going to start off with a few words about what we're going to do today, why we're here and how we're going to go about it, as well as I'm going to fill you in on some work that I've been doing with the Committee for Greater Shepparton around the aspiration for this place, this community, to help set the scene. Why have a summit? There's been a bit of a few words mentioned about that already. In short, what we want to do today is share ideas and have challenging conversations and listen to each other. So that's the talk fest part, isn't it? That's what we do, we go off and we meet in groups and we talk a fair bit, don't we? And we often hear when we come out of a place, well, it was a bit of a talk fest, but what's going to come out of it? We want to discuss an aspiration for the future, because we really think that the best way to encourage change in a positive way is to think about how we can create a better place. We want to develop collaborative solutions. That's what David's talked about, is we want to come together and say, how can we put our brands and our organisations behind us and say, what's the best thing to do together? And to focus on what is important. So there'll be hard work to be done this afternoon, working together to think about what's the focus, what's important, how can we work together to make a difference. All right? I'll talk a bit about how we're going to do that in a minute. So working together today, let's all listen to each other and contribute. Let's build on what others have to say. So when we hear an interesting idea, add to that idea. Be hard on the issue, but easy on the person. Stick to the purpose of today, which I've just talked about. And finally, write down your ideas. So what do we know? We've circulated to you two terrific papers on the social economic profile and the social and economic impact in public arts museums. And I hope everyone's read those, because I thought they were marvellous papers to think about the issues before you come. We know Shepparton has strengths and weaknesses, and David's talked about that. And we know arts and culture can provide solutions. Those papers provide a tremendous background on those issues. And that's much of what today is about. I've been engaged in the last month or so to help Committee for Greater Shepparton put together its first business plan. And so I've been in the community interviewing people individually and running workshops in groups on various streams and listening to what people are saying. And I'm going to talk to you a bit about that now to set the scene for today. So many interviews have been done with the community. Both myself and Matt Nelson, the CEO of the Committee for Greater Shepparton, has been listening to members, listening to community people, thinking about what they're saying. The workshops that I ran said, where are we now? What is our aspiration for the future? And what must happen? I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Some of the themes about what we learnt were that Shepparton's strengths aren't necessarily being turned into opportunities. In fact, I've found, being from Bendigo, from outside Shepparton, that people often almost ignored the great strengths Shepparton has that we see from outside, if you like. That's a comment from an outsider. There is great concern about disadvantage, and that's largely the reason we're here today. People love the place, but they'd always add a but. We love Shepparton, but. So there was a fair bit of that. There's a bit of, our cup's a bit less than half full and we want to fill it up. We love the opportunities we have, but we're not building it up. There's also an element of we're missing out. As a regional city, we feel like we're missing out compared to others. Okay, there's a snapshot of some of the general trends and themes that came out of some conversations that I had. I'm going to talk now about aspirations. And can you please take into account that this is in a draft form. This is not the Committee for Greater Shepparton's official aspiration. I just want to throw out there to you some of the aspirations that people talked about. And it came together in a statement somewhat like this: Victoria's Food Bowl and Business Centre. We want to be, in 2030, recognised as Victoria's Food Bowl and Business Centre, exporting high quality, fresh and value-added produce to Australia and the world. We'll be connected to Australia and the world through modern infrastructure and supported by a thriving and educated community that celebrates its rich culture and diversity. Now that's a product of throwing everything together, and that gives you a sort of a bit of a what I'd call a bit vanilla sort of aspiration. I'm going to dig deeper now because we talked in 4 groups, 4 themes around the aspirations. I found some of this aspiration setting absolutely fascinating, because what I said to people was, in 2030, imagine you're there. Imagine life in 2030, imagine the people you're mixing with, the activities you're participating in, what business looks like, what community looks like, what you want it to look like in 2030. And here's some of the material that came from that. And this is just to stimulate your thinking, because today we want you to be doing similar things, thinking about what you want this place to look like, this community to look like and feel like, and then what do we need to do to get there? So this is a draft, so qualified, highly qualified, don't shoot me. A productive community. The Goulburn Valley in 2030 is the most important producer of fresh and processed food in Australia. We may be that now, but we want everyone to know that, don't we? We produce and export fresh and processed food to all corners of the world. Our multicultural community attracts visitors and celebrates its food culture. We are a centre for learning about food production, exporting and processing. Now I've picked out pieces out of a bigger picture, but I just want to put those 3 in front of you in terms of a productive community. And I know Peter will talk more about this in just a minute. A connected community, an example to the world of a connected community. The city has an international reputation for its livability, walking, riding, driving, public transport. A city the size of Shepparton, I believe, strongly has that opportunity. We have a fast train to and from Melbourne every hour. We're connected to the world with fast broadband. Okay? That's not 2030, is it? That's next week. Thanks, Anne. I'm not trying hard enough, am I? No. Creative community, a national reputation, a national icon for Indigenous and multicultural arts. The city celebrates and embraces the beauty of the Goulburn River. The city is a centre for sporting, cultural and community events. And finally, inclusive community. And one of these came from one of the people in this room. People will greet each other in the Yorta Yorta language. Because as we discussed in our workshops, if that's happening, what needs to happen? What needs to change? People migrate to Shepparton because of its reputation as a safe, friendly and welcoming community. The population is in the top 10% of healthy cities in Australia, and cultural and sexual diversity is celebrated. So I think that page presents as an interesting challenge. And as I said, it's a sample. I've picked some pieces out just to show you the sort of thinking around aspirations. As I've said, this isn't set in concrete, it's for conversation. Right? The process for today. So we're in introductions and purpose, and we're going to very soon move on to building on strengths, understanding challenges. Right? So the series of speakers up till after lunch We'll talk about agriculture, arts, Indigenous community and education, about building on our strengths and understanding the challenges that are there. All right? There will be an opportunity to ask questions of the speakers, and I think there's a fantastic lineup of people who are deeply informed about the issues we're going to talk about. Following that, there'll be the workshop, and we'll be going into 4 streams for the workshops, working on those jotting sheets that you've got in front of you. So the process for the workshop, and I'm letting you know this now because I want you thinking about that now, not when we all go into the workshops. Think about the city we want, the community we want to live in 2030. Okay? Try and describe that to yourself about how it looks, feels, the people, the community. What must happen to enable your stream, and I'll talk about the streams in a minute, to play a part in this vision? What must happen? What must be done in the short term? Who must take responsibility for driving those actions and measuring and reporting on progress? So towards the end of the workshop, we want you to be thinking about who's going to put their hand up, who's going to help this happen. Okay? Now, we don't have to, write a complete plan this afternoon, but we want the conversations to be going from where we want to be to what we've got to do about it. Okay? And you'll have people in your groups to help you with the conversation and to help you write it down. And we will have a brief summary of each of the 4 streams for you at the end of the day. And the streams are education, which Richard James will be facilitating, arts, which Jodie Evans will be facilitating, Indigenous, which Ro Allen will be facilitating, and early intervention, which Jan Carter will be facilitating. So you can see we've got people with a vast amount of knowledge in each of those areas to help you run your stream. You'll be able to choose which stream you go to. Okay, we're not going to put you anywhere, all right? So please think about where you want to be, what you want to think about throughout the day.